The ramp came up before I was ready for it. I mean, I'd stepped off already. I was on the dock with my duffel and my toolbox, standing there with diesel smell and cold spray in my face. But watching the ferry crew winch that metal ramp back up into the boat, that felt different. Final. The hydraulics whined and the thing folded into place, and that was it. The Elizabeth Ann gave one long blast and started backing away from Monhegan Island, and I just stood there like an idiot, toolbox handle digging into my palm. It's not like I didn't know ferries leave. That's what they do. You get on, you get off, they go back. I'd taken the same one from Port Clyde an hour ago. Paid $43, sat on a bench that smelled like old bait, didn't talk to anyone. Standard stuff. But watching it pull away now, I got this weird tightness in my chest. Not panic. Just this low-grade awareness that I'd crossed onto a piece of rock 12 miles offshore, and the only thing connecting me back to the mainland was leaving. The wake spread out in white lines. A couple of gulls followed the stern, probably hoping for trash. I watched until the boat was small enough that I couldn't make out individual people on the deck anymore, just a blue and white shape against gray water. I set the toolbox down, rotated my shoulder. The duffel strap had been cutting in during the walk from the boat, and my neck felt stiff on that side. I'd packed light, 4 days worth of clothes, a spare pair of work gloves, my charger brick, deodorant. The toolbox had the real weight. Multimeter, wire strippers, needle nose pliers, electrical tape, a few other basics. Leah said the Lighthouse would have most of the equipment on site. But I don't trust that. Never have. Leah May, my supervisor, she's the one who sent me here. She'd called me a week ago, Tuesday, I think, and said she had a short contract if I wanted it. Electrical work at Monhegan Island Light. Some kind of weatherproofing issue with the junction box, and they needed someone to run diagnostics, replace components, make sure the whole system was rated for another winter. 4 days, maybe 5. Straightforward. Don't miss the last ferry, she'd said. That was the first thing. Not hello, not how are you. Just, contract runs Monday through Thursday. Last boat back is Friday morning at 7:15. Don't miss it. I told her I wouldn't. I mean it, Noah. They run limited service this time of year. If you miss Friday's boat, you're stuck until Monday. And I've got you scheduled in Portland next week. I won't miss it. She'd paused. I could hear her typing something. Leah's always doing 2 things at once. You're sure you're good for this? It's isolated. No cell service worth a damn. You be working alone most of the time. That's fine. Okay. More typing. I'm sending the specs now. Contact on island is Cheryl Hall. She runs the inn where you're staying. She'll get you oriented. Got it. And Noah, yeah? This is a good contract. State Historical Trust, decent rate, easy scope. Don't make it complicated. I'd said I wouldn't. Then I hung up and stared at my apartment wall for 10 minutes, wondering what the hell she meant by that. Leah's not wrong about me. I do make things complicated sometimes. Or I used to. That's probably what she was getting at. The dock was mostly empty now. A guy in a canvas jacket and boots was hauling a plastic crate toward a shed at the far end. A couple of lobster traps stacked near a piling. The whole island smelled like salt and wet wood and something else I couldn't name. Seaweed, maybe. Diesel. Hard to say. I picked up the toolbox again and started walking. There was a dirt path leading up from the dock into what I guess you'd call the village. I'm not great with that kind of terminology. It was small, that's all I know. Buildings clustered together, most of them old wood frame houses with weathered shingles. A couple of them looked like they'd been painted white at some point, but the paint was flaking off in long strips. Everything had this worn-down look, but not abandoned, just used. I passed a sign that said, Monhegan General Store in hand-painted letters, closed. A smaller sign below it said, open seasonally, May to October. It was November. That was fine. I'd brought granola bars. The path curved uphill and I followed it, toolbox swinging a little with each step. My boots were good, Carolinas, 8-inch, still broken in from last year, but the ground was uneven enough that I had to watch where I stepped. Rocks, roots, patches of mud. I didn't see anyone. That was the thing that got to me first. Not in a bad way. Just, I noticed it. There were houses, and a couple of them had smoke coming from the chimneys, so people were obviously here. But I didn't see a single person walking around. No cars either. I mean, I don't know what I expected. It's an island. You can't exactly drive here. But it felt strange, quiet. I kind of liked it. That's the part I wasn't expecting. I thought I'd feel trapped, boxed in. 12 miles offshore, no car, limited ferry service, nothing but ocean in every direction. That should have felt claustrophobic, but it didn't. It felt manageable, fewer variables. That's what I kept thinking. Fewer things that could go wrong, fewer decisions to screw up. I had a job, I had a place to sleep, I had a ferry schedule. 4 days. Fix the wiring, check the components, close the work order, get on the boat Friday morning. Simple. I'm not good with complicated anymore. The path leveled out and I saw a house ahead with a wooden sign that said, "Trailing you in." 2 stories, gray shingles, white trim around the windows. Neat. There was a small porch with a bench and a couple of potted plants that looked dead. I climbed the steps and knocked. Nobody answered. I waited. Knocked again. Still nothing. I tried the door. Unlocked. I pushed it open and stepped inside. Hello? The front room was set up like a lobby, I guess. A desk with a clipboard and a pen on a chain. A couple of chairs. A bookshelf with old paperbacks and a few pieces of driftwood arranged on the top shelf. It smelled like coffee and wood smoke. "Hello," I said again. A woman's voice came from somewhere in the back. Just a second. I stood there. Didn't touch anything. I could hear footsteps, and then a door opened and a woman in her 50s came through. She had short gray hair and was wearing a fleece pullover and jeans. She looked at me, looked at my toolbox, and nodded. "You're the electrician," she said. "Yeah, Noah Salazar. Cheryl Hall." She didn't offer to shake hands, just gestured at the desk. "You're in room 3, upstairs, end of the hall. Bathrooms shared. Breakfast is at 7 if you want it, but I'm not running a full service right now. You're the only guest." "That's fine." She pulled a key off a hook behind the desk and handed it to me. Actual metal key, not a card. Lighthouse is a 20-minute walk, straight up the main path, then left at the fork. You'll see it. "Okay. You need anything else?" "No, thanks." She nodded and disappeared back through the door she'd come from. I stood there for another few seconds, then headed upstairs. Room 3 was small. Single bed, a dresser, a chair by the window. The window looked out over the village and past it to the ocean. I could see the mainland from here. Just a dark line on the horizon, but it was there. I dropped my duffel on the bed and set the toolbox on the floor. Sat down. The mattress was firm, not uncomfortable. I should have felt relieved. Good job. Decent setup, clear instructions. Leah had been right. This was easy. But sitting there looking out at the water, I felt it creep back in. Boston. 2 months ago. I didn't want to think about it. I'd been trying not to think about it for 8 weeks straight. But the quiet here, it made space for it. No traffic noise, no people talking, no distractions. Just me and the sound of wind outside and my own brain doing what it always does when I stop moving. I'd been an emergency dispatcher for 6 years. 911 calls, fire and medical routing, the whole thing. I was good at it. Fast, calm, methodical. I didn't freeze. That was the thing everyone said about me. Noah doesn't freeze. Until I did. It was a Monday. Late shift. I took a call at 11:48 p.m. Woman's voice shaking, saying there was someone in her house. She was hiding in a bathroom. She didn't know where he was. She kept whispering, asking me what to do. I told her to stay quiet. I told her I was sending officers. I told her she was doing great, just stay on the line with me. She believed me. I routed the call, gave the address, marked it high priority. 2 units dispatched, estimated arrival, 4 minutes. She kept whispering, asking if they were close, asking if I was still there. I told her I was still there. Then I heard the door break. She screamed. I heard her scream, and then I heard something else. Heavy footsteps, a man's voice, low and angry, words I couldn't make out. And she was crying, begging, and I just sat there. I sat there with the headset on and my hand on the mouse, and I didn't say anything. I should have kept talking to her. I should have kept her calm, kept her focused, told her the officers were almost there. That's the protocol. You don't go silent. You stay on the line. You stay present. But I didn't. I heard it happen. I heard all of it. And I didn't say a single word. The officers arrived 3 minutes and 42 seconds after dispatch. They found her in the hallway. The guy ran, but they got him 2 blocks away. She lived. Broken ribs, concussion, lacerations. But she lived. I didn't get fired. My supervisor pulled me into a meeting the next day and asked if I was okay. I said I was fine. She said I could take some time if I needed it. I said I didn't. I worked 2 more weeks. Then I stopped showing up. Nobody called to ask why. Or maybe they did and I didn't answer. I don't really remember. Leah found me a month later. She's a contractor coordinator, works with a bunch of different trades. She'd used me before for side jobs when I needed extra cash. She didn't ask what happened, just said she had work if I wanted it. I wanted it. I wanted something with clear steps, something I could fix. Wiring doesn't scream at you. Junction boxes don't beg for help. You run diagnostics, you find the fault, you replace the component. It works or it doesn't. Simple. I stood up and went to the window. The ferry was gone now, completely out of sight. Just ocean and sky and that thin, dark line of the mainland. I tried to tell myself it didn't matter. 4 days. I'd be back on that boat Friday morning and this whole trip would just be another finished work order. But standing there, looking at all that empty water, I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd already made some kind of choice I didn't understand yet. I was here. The boat was gone, and whatever happened next, I was going to be stuck with it. Cheryl had me sign the guest log that first afternoon. 1 line, name, date, checkout day. She didn't ask where I was from or what brought me out here beyond the job. Didn't offer a tour or mention house rules. Just pointed at the breakfast time written on a chalkboard near the kitchen door, 7 a.m., and told me not to track mud past the mat. I got the sense pretty quick that she ran the place the way you'd run a tool shed. Everything had a spot. You used what you needed and put it back. You didn't take up extra space. That worked fine for me. She kept the inn clean but not warm. The kind of clean that's about function, not comfort. Floors swept, no dust on the baseboards, but no flowers and vases or pictures on the walls either. The heat worked, but she kept it low enough that I wore my jacket most of the time. Breakfast was oatmeal, toast, black coffee. She set it out at 7 exactly. And if I came down at 7:15, the dishes were already gone. I ate at 7. We didn't talk much. She'd nod when I came through the door, ask if the room was fine. Then go back to whatever she was doing. Paperwork usually, or prepping something in the kitchen. Once I saw her replacing a broken hinge on one of the port shutters, and I offered to help. She just shook her head and said she had it. I figured she'd seen plenty of contractors come through. Probably got tired of small talk years ago. That was fine. I wasn't here to make friends. The light station was a 20-minute walk uphill, just like Cheryl said. The path started wide and packed dirt, then narrowed as it climbed through low brush and granite outcrops. The lighthouse itself sat on a cleared patch of rock and scrub grass, white tower with a black cap. Attached keeper's house painted the same. The whole site had that weather-beaten look you get on the coast, paint holding on, but barely. The junction box I was supposed to check was mounted on the exterior wall of the keeper's house, under an overhang that hadn't done much to keep the salt air out. I popped the cover off and saw what I expected. Corrosion on 2 of the terminals, one wire with cracked insulation, moisture stains on the housing. Not dangerous yet, but it would be by spring. I spent the first 2 days tracing conduit runs and checking connections, making notes in the little spiral pad I kept in my jacket pocket. Pulled a few cover plates, tested voltage, wrote down part numbers for replacements I'd need to order. The wiring was old but solid, cloth-wrapped stuff in some sections, updated in others. Someone had done patchwork over the years, and most of it was competent. A few spots made me wince. Wire nuts where there should have been junction boxes, one splice just wrapped in electrical tape. But nothing that couldn't be fixed. It was good work. Clear steps. Measure, document, replace. I could do it in my sleep. I liked that. The site was quiet during the day. I'd see 1 or 2 people on the trails sometimes, but nobody came up to the light itself. I'd hear gulls and wind, and sometimes the low moan of a ship horn way out past the rocks. That was it. I worked until the daylight started fading, then packed up my tools and walked back down. At night, I couldn't sit still in the room. It was too small, and the quiet felt different after dark, heavier. So I walked. There weren't many streets, just a few dirt paths connecting the houses and the dock and the general store. I'd start at the inn, head downhill toward the water, then loop back up past the church. Same route every time. 30 minutes, maybe 40 if I went slow. The church sat on a low hill above the village, small white building with a simple steeple and a weathered sign out front that said Monhegan Community Church. Services Sunday at 10. It had a front door with peeling red paint and narrow windows on either side. I never saw anyone go in or out, but there was a light on inside most nights. I didn't go in, just walked past, but I heard it. The bell chain, it hung inside the steeple. I could see it through the slats if I stood at the right angle, and it moved sometimes, just a little, enough to clink. The first time I figured it was wind. The steeple probably had gaps, and wind does weird things to old buildings. But the second night, I stopped and watched for a minute, and there wasn't any wind. The air was still. Cold, but still. The chain moved anyway, just a slight sway, enough to tap the metal links together. Clink, pause, clink. I stood there longer than I should have, waiting to see if it would stop. It didn't. The third night, I told myself I wasn't going to look. I walked past on the other side of the path, kept my eyes forward, kept moving. I still heard it. Clink. It bothered me more than it should have. I didn't believe in ghosts or bad energy or any of that. I believed in mechanical explanations, loose bolts, settling foundations, temperature shifts causing expansion and contraction. But I didn't go inside to check. I told myself it didn't matter. I was here to work on the light station, not troubleshoot a church bell. I had a clear scope. 4 days, maybe 5. Fix the weatherproofing, verify the ratings, get on the Friday ferry, that was it. The bell chain didn't fit into that. So I ignored it, or I tried to. On the 4th morning, I got to the light station early. The fog was thick coming up the path, and by the time I reached the top, I was damp and cold and ready to get inside where my tools were. But I saw something move down by the rocks. Not a person. Something low and dark, wedged between 2 slabs of granite below the light. I almost kept walking. It wasn't my business. Probably driftwood or a chunk of seaweed, but it was the wrong shape. I set my toolbox down and climbed down the slope toward the waterline. The rocks were slick, covered in a thin layer of algae and sea spray, and I had to go slow to keep from slipping. The smell hit me halfway down, salt and rot and something metallic. It was a seal, wedged between two rocks, half in the water. Fresh, from the look of it. No bloating, no serious decay. The fur was still sleek, dark gray with lighter spots along the back. But the neck was wrong. I crouched down next to it, careful not to touch it, and looked closer. There were slits, 4 of them, 2 on each side, running parallel just below the jaw. Clean cuts, neat edges, deliberate. Gills. Someone had tried to give it gills. I stood up fast, almost lost my footing on the rocks. My chest went tight and I had to breathe through my mouth because the smell was worse up close. I pulled out my phone. No signal, but the camera still worked. I took 3 photos. Wide shot, close-up of the neck, another angle showing the position between the rocks. Then I climbed back up. I didn't get much done that day. Kept thinking about the cuts, the precision. You don't make cuts like that by accident. Around noon, I hiked back down to the village and stood on the hill above the dock until I got 1 bar of signal. Took 10 minutes of moving around, but I found a spot that held. I called the county warden's office. Got transferred twice, then a guy picked up and said his name was Ross Vega. I told him I found a dead seal on Monhegan, and it looked like someone had cut it. He asked where exactly. I told him below the light station, east side, wedged in the rocks. He asked if I'd touched it. I said no. He asked if I had photos. I said yes, and he gave me an email address. I sent them while I was still on the line. There was a pause while he looked at them. Then he said, "Yeah, those are cuts." I waited. He said, "Could be vandalism. Kids, maybe. You see anyone else around?" I said no. He said he'd log it. If more evidence showed up, he'd escalate. Otherwise, it'd go in the file as illegal handling of marine wildlife, and he'd add it to the patrol notes for the area. I asked if someone was coming out to look at it. He said probably not unless there was a pattern. Budget was tight, and it was a long way for 1 carcass. I said okay. He thanked me for reporting it and hung up. I walked back up to the light station and opened my notebook, stared at the parts list I'd been working on. Conduit clamps, weather-rated connectors, junction box with NEMA 4X rating. Clear steps. I told myself the seal was a prank, somebody's idea of a joke, or maybe some kind of art project. People did weird things on islands. Isolation made them strange. It didn't mean anything. I had work to do. I picked up my multimeter and got back to it. I was back in the room after lunch, half a sandwich and some kind of soup Cheryl left out, when I heard her footsteps coming up the stairs, fast. Not the usual measured pace she kept around the inn. She knocked once and opened the door before I could answer. "Need you at the dock," she said. I stood up from the chair. "What for?" "Now." That was it. She turned and went back down the stairs, and I grabbed my jacket and followed because the tone didn't leave room for negotiation. I figured maybe something with the ferry schedule or a delivery she needed help unloading. She didn't run an inn alone at her age without knowing how to delegate. I caught up with her on the porch. She was already halfway down the path, moving at a clip that had me lengthening my stride to keep pace. "Cheryl, just come." I shut up and followed. The narrow lane that led down toward the water was steeper than I remembered. Or maybe she was just taking it faster than I ever had. The dirt was still damp from rain 2 days prior, and my boots slipped once on a root. But I caught myself. Cheryl didn't slow down. She had her arms tight at her sides and her jaw set in a way that reminded me of supervisors I'd worked under who were about to deliver bad news and wanted it over with. We rounded the last turn, and the dock came into view. No ferry. No boat at all, actually. Just the empty stretch of weathered planks and the bait shed off to the left, which I'd passed a few times but never paid much attention to. Small structure, peeling paint, gaps in the boards. Sage Hayes was standing outside it. I'd seen him once or twice in passing. Tall guy, broad through the shoulders, always wearing oilskin bibs and a knit cap pulled low. Cheryl's cousin, I think she'd mentioned that the first day. He had his back to us and there was wet rope piled at his feet in loose coils, dark and dripping seawater onto the planks. His hands were on his hips and his head was tilted down like he was staring at something on the ground. Cheryl didn't call out to him. She just walked straight over and I followed. And that's when I saw what he was looking at. There was a body on the dock. I stopped walking. It was sprawled on its back, limbs at odd angles, tangled in more of that trap line. Wet. Everything about it was wet. The rope, the planks underneath, the clothes or whatever was left of them, clinging to the torso. The smell hit me a second later. Salt and rot and something sharper. Chemical almost. Sage turned when he heard us. His face was pale under the windburn, and his eyes were too wide. "Pulled it up," he said. His voice cracked. "Didn't see it in the line till—" "I know," Cheryl said. I couldn't stop looking at it. The face was human enough. I could recognize it as a person. Nose, mouth, the shape of a skull under slack skin. But the eyes were wrong, filmed over with this green haze, cloudy and flat, no pupil visible. Just a murky color that didn't belong on anything living. Or dead, maybe. I didn't know. The hands were worse. They were palm up, fingers splayed, and there was webbing between them. Thin membrane stretching from knuckle to knuckle, translucent in places, torn in others. It looked organic, not like gloves or some prosthetic. It looked grown. My chest went tight. "What is that?" I said. Sage made a noise that might have been a laugh, but came out strangled. It happens. Not often, but..." He gestured at it, sharp and helpless. "We don't call anyone. Cheryl, we can't..." "I know," she said again. I looked at her. She was staring at the body with the same expression she'd had when I asked if I could help with the port shutter. Flat, practical, already deciding what needed to be done. "We need to call someone," I said. "No. Cheryl, I know what it is." Sage was shaking. I could see it in his shoulders, the way his hands kept clenching and unclenching at his sides. "Happened before," he said. "Twice. Once when I was a kid. Once about 8 years back. We called the Coast Guard the first time and they came out and took statements and photos, and we had people here for weeks asking questions and poking around, and it didn't help. Didn't explain anything. Just made it worse." "Made what worse?" I said. "Everything," Cheryl said. I looked back at the body, at the webbed hands and the clouded eyes and the rope still wrapped around one ankle. My brain was trying to sort it into categories. Drowning victim, medical anomaly, something explainable. But it wasn't fitting. "We can't just leave it here," I said. "We're not going to." Cheryl moved fast. She grabbed my arm and pulled me toward the bait shed, and I went because I didn't know what else to do. Sage followed, glancing over his shoulder at the dock like he expected someone to appear. Cheryl shoved the shed door open and pushed me inside, and Sage came in after and she shut the door hard. It was dark, one small window on the far wall letting in gray light, enough to see the workbench and the coiled nets and the tools hanging on nails. It smelled like fish and rust and old wood. "Listen," Cheryl said. She was standing with her back to the door, arms crossed. "We call them floaters. Don't know what they are. Don't know where they come from. But they show up sometimes, and when they do, we handle it." "Handle it how?" I said. Quietly. Sage was pacing in the small space, 3 steps one way and 3 steps back. "We drag it out past the rocks," he said. "Let the tide take it. That's what we did before. That's what works." "No," Cheryl said. He stopped. "What?" "We hold it till dark. Do it the way my father did." "Cheryl..." I'm not risking it washing back in, not this close to the village. I was still trying to catch up. You're talking about disposal, I said, of a body. It's not a body, Cheryl said. It's shaped like one. It's a floater. That doesn't mean anything to me. She looked at me for a long moment. Her face was hard, but there was something else underneath. Not fear exactly, but close. Caution, maybe. The kind you learn. Outside help brings complications, she said. Questions we can't answer. Attention we don't need. The island can't afford that. Can't afford what? People leaving. Sage had started pacing again. If word gets out that we're pulling these things up, nobody's staying. Nobody's coming back for the season. We're already down to 60 year-round and half of them are past 70. We lose more and there's no school, no ferry funding, no... He stopped himself. We just can't. I looked at Cheryl. So you bury it. We take care of it, she said. And you want me to help. You're here. You saw it. That makes you part of this. I wanted to argue. Wanted to say I had no part in whatever this was, that I'd come here to fix a junction box and nothing else. But I was standing in a bait shed with the door shut and a thing with webbed hands 20 feet away, and I realized too late that I'd already stepped past the point where walking away was an option. What's the method? I said. Cheryl's shoulders dropped half an inch. Relief, maybe. We wait till after dark, move it to the old root cellar past the church. My father kept it there once for 3 days before he could... She stopped. We'll figure it out. Sage shook his head. This is a mistake. We should just drag it out now while there's no one on the dock. And if it washes back? It won't. You don't know that. They stared at each other. Cousins, I remembered. Probably had this same argument 100 times over 100 different things. I turned toward the door. I'm gonna look at it again. Don't, Cheryl said. I need to. Noah! I opened the door before she could finish. The body was still there. Obviously. I don't know what I expected. It hadn't moved, hadn't shifted. Still sprawled in the same position, with the rope tangled around its limbs. The eyes were still that flat green, and the hands were still webbed, and the smell was still heavy enough to taste. I stepped closer. Cheryl and Sage came out behind me, but I wasn't paying attention to them. I was looking at the fingers, at the membrane between them, trying to see if it was some kind of mutation or deformity or... The body twitched, just once. A spasm that ran through the shoulders and down the right arm, jerking the hand an inch to the side. I stepped back fast. It's alive, I said. Sage swore. Cheryl didn't move. She just stared at it, and I realized from the way her jaw tightened that this wasn't a surprise. Sometimes they are, she said. I was still staring at the thing on the floor when something dark and wet started pooling under its jaw. Not blood, blue. Thick and slow, spreading across the planks in a line toward my boot. I stepped back. The smell hit a second later, metallic, sharp, exactly like pennies left in salt water. My mouth went dry. The fluid kept coming, not gushing, just leaking steady from the corner of its mouth, running down over the skin that was too gray and too slack to look right even on a drowned body. I opened my mouth to say something, probably something useless. I don't remember. The eyes opened. Both at once. No flutter, no slow drag of eyelids, just open, and they locked onto me. I froze. They didn't blink, didn't shift. The green film was still there, cloudy and flat, but underneath I could see the pupils. Tiny black points tracking me while I stood there like an idiot with my back pressed against the workbench. Then it breathed. Not through the mouth, through the slits. The 4 cuts I'd seen on the seal. The ones I'd convinced myself were just damage, just vandalism, they were on this thing's neck too. And they opened. The sound that came out was wet, A clicking, sucking noise that filled the whole shed, rhythmic and deliberate. Air pulling in, then pushing out. In, out, in, out. My chest locked up. I couldn't breathe right. Couldn't think past the sound and the eyes and the fact that it was moving now, just a little. Fingers twitching against the planks. There was a cooler shoved against the wall next to me. White plastic, cracked lid, probably used for bait. I didn't decide to grab it. My hands just moved. I ripped the lid off and slammed it down over the thing's face. The clicking stopped. I kept pressure on the lid, both hands flat, leaning my weight into it, feeling the plastic bow slightly under my palms. My brain wasn't working. Just the thought that if I pressed hard enough, maybe it would stop. Maybe force could substitute for certainty. Maybe I could make it not real. "Don't," Sage's voice, cracked and thin. I didn't look up. It's awake. I know. It was looking at me. I know. Cheryl moved closer. I heard her boots on the planks, careful steps, then stopping a few feet away. She didn't tell me to let go. Sage made a sound halfway between a laugh and a cough. "Stabbing it won't help." "I'm not stabbing it." My voice came out flat. "I'm keeping it down." "That won't help either." He was shaking. I could hear it in his breathing, fast and uneven. "Stabbing just wakes them faster. Tried that the first time. Knife went in clean, didn't bleed right. Thing sat up and grabbed my wrist." I pressed harder on the lid. My knuckles were white. "Sage." Cheryl's tone had an edge. "She should know," he said. "If she's gonna help, she should know what doesn't work." "He," I said. Didn't know why that mattered. "And I'm not helping. I'm holding a lid." Sage ignored me. He was pacing again, 3 steps each way, hands knotting together in front of him. The old way works. My grandfather did it twice. Cheryl's dad did it. You mark them and you drown the marks in sound. I looked up. "What?" He pointed. Not at the body. Up. Through the shed roof, past the village, toward the hill. "The church," Cheryl said. I stared at her. "You're joking." "I'm not." "The bell." "Yes. You want to ring a church bell at a dead body." "It's not dead," Sage said, his voice cracked. "That's the problem." My hands were cramping. I shifted my grip but didn't lift the lid. "This is insane." "It's what we have," Cheryl said. She was calm. Too calm. The kind of calm you use when you've already made the decision and you're just waiting for everyone else to catch up. "You go get Ronald. He'll know what to bring." "Who's Ronald?" "The pastor." I laughed. Couldn't help it. Short, sharp, probably too loud. "You want me to get a pastor?" "Yes." "And tell him what exactly?" "That Cheryl sent you." She crossed her arms. "He'll understand." I looked at Sage. He wasn't meeting my eyes, just staring at the floor, at the blue fluid still pooled near the thing's head, hands shaking so hard I could see the tremor from where I stood. "Why me?" I asked. "Because Sage can't walk right now," Cheryl said. "And because you're the only one here who might still follow directions." That stung. Probably meant to. I looked down at the cooler lid, at my hands pressing into the plastic, at the shape underneath that I couldn't see anymore but knew was still there, still wrong, still breathing through slits that shouldn't exist. "Fine," I said, "but someone else holds this." Cheryl stepped forward and put her hands next to mine. On 3. We switched, fast. She leaned her weight down and I pulled back, wiping my palms on my jeans even though they weren't wet. They felt wet. I didn't look at Sage on my way out. The church was up the hill past the inn, same route I'd walked every night. Took me 6 minutes, maybe 7. I wasn't counting. The door was heavier than it looked. Old wood, red paint peeling in strips, iron handle cold under my palm. I shoved it open and stepped inside. small, maybe 20 rows of pews, narrow aisle down the center, simple altar at the front. The bell chain I'd seen through the steeple slats hung along the right wall, disappearing up through a hole in the ceiling. It was still swaying, just barely. No wind inside, but it moved. A man stood near the front pew with a hymnal in his hands, 60, maybe older, thin build, white hair combed back. He wore a black clerical shirt under a worn coat, and he looked up when I came in like he'd been expecting someone. Not me, probably, just someone. Help you? His voice was low, steady, no surprise in it. Cheryl sent me, I said. He closed the hymnal, set it down on the pew. Cheryl Hall? Yes. He nodded once. What did she find? A body. Sort of. It has gills, I said, and webbing. And it was breathing. His expression didn't change. He just looked at me for a second, then walked past me toward the back corner of the church where a cabinet stood against the wall. Dark wood, locked with a simple brass latch. You're the electrician, he said. Wasn't a question. Yeah. She pulled you into this? Didn't give me much choice. He unlocked the cabinet, opened it. Inside were shelves with candles, a Bible, folded linens, and on the bottom shelf, a wooden box. He lifted the box out, set it on the nearest pew, opened the lid. Inside was a brass striker, heavy, old, wrapped in a piece of gray cloth that might have been white once. Next to it was a jar, glass with a metal lid, filled with dark flakes that looked like dried seaweed, or skin. I didn't want to know. This is what you'll need, he said. He picked up the striker, unwrapped it halfway so I could see the dull shine of the metal underneath, then wrapped it again and held it out. I took it. It was heavier than I expected. The bell's a tool, he said, not comfort. You ring it steady. 3 strikes, pause, 3 strikes. You don't stop until Cheryl tells you. That's it? That's it. I looked down at the striker in my hands. What's in the jar? Sage'll know. And this actually works. It has before. He closed the box, locked the cabinet, turned back to me with his arms crossed, and for the first time I saw something in his face that wasn't calm. Wasn't sure what it was. Weariness, maybe. Or just old fear worn smooth. You're not the first outsider she's pulled in, he said. Won't be the last. Island needs bodies when something like this happens. You follow the steps, you'll be fine. And if I don't? He didn't answer. I turned toward the door, stopped. Why didn't she just call someone? She did, he said. She called you. I mean the Coast Guard, the county, anyone with actual authority. Ronald, I figured that was his name. Cheryl had said Ronald, shook his head. We tried that, long time ago. Didn't end well. Sage mentioned. Then you know. He walked past me, opened the door, held it. Cold air spilled in. They ask questions we can't answer. They take things we can't get back. And they leave. I stepped outside. He followed, pulling the door shut behind him. I looked toward the water. The horizon was darker than it had been 20 minutes ago. A thin band of fog sitting just above the surface, gray-white and dense, sliding closer without any wind to push it. That's moving fast, I said. Ronald looked. His jaw tightened. It does that. Should I be worried? Yes, he said. But not the way you think. I waited. He pointed at the fog. It listens, and it learns voices. That's why we don't call for help. That's why we handle things quiet. I stared at him. You're serious? I am. The fog was maybe half a mile out, maybe less. Hard to judge distance over water. Go, Ronald said. Cheryl's waiting. I went. I got back to the shed and found someone new standing next to Sage. A girl, maybe 17. Dark braid down her back, rain jacket zipped to her chin, and deck boots that looked 2 sizes too big. She wasn't looking at me. She was looking at the cooler lid Cheryl was still leaning on with both hands. Sage noticed me first. He straightened up a little and nodded toward the girl. "Ava," he said. "Called her before you left." Ava turned. Her eyes were gray and steady. No panic there, no hesitation. She looked at the striker in my hand, then back at my face. "You ring it yet?" "Not yet." "Good." She pulled a notebook out of her jacket pocket. It was sealed in clear plastic, the kind you'd use to keep something dry on a boat. The edges were worn, but the seal looked fresh. She peeled it open and flipped through pages without asking if I wanted to see. I stepped closer. The pages were covered in sketches. Pencil mostly, some in pen. The first one showed a neck in profile with 4 parallel lines running below the jaw. Clean lines, precise. The second sketch was a close-up of the lines with arrows pointing inward and a note in tight handwriting that said, "Doors, not wounds." I stared at that for a second. Doors. Ava flipped to the next page. This one had a diagram of a circle with hash marks all the way around and a stick figure lying in the center. Another note along the bottom. "Salt works like a fence if the ring is unbroken." "You drew these?" I asked. "Some. My uncle did the rest." She didn't look up. "He worked traps for 30 years, pulled up 2 floaters in that time. Wrote it all down." Sage made a noise in his throat. Her uncle didn't make it through the second one. Ava's jaw tightened, but she didn't respond. She flipped to another page and held it out toward me. This one showed a bell at the top, a body in the middle, and wavy lines coming off the body with arrows pointing outward. The note said, "Hum spreads if not stopped. One ring erases it before it roots." I looked at Cheryl. She was still holding the cooler lid down, but her eyes were on the notebook. "You got salt?" she asked. Ava nodded and pulled a canvas bag off her shoulder. She set it on the workbench and untied the top. Inside was a commercial-sized container of Morton salt, the kind you'd use to fill a softener. She handed it to me without a word. "Circle it," Cheryl said. "Inside the shed, don't break the line." I took the container. It was heavy, maybe 25 pounds. I unscrewed the cap and looked at Sage. "You need to move." He stepped back toward the wall. I started at the door and poured a line of salt in a slow arc around the cooler and the body underneath. The grains hissed a little when they hit the damp planks. I kept the flow steady and didn't stop until I reached the door again. The circle closed. No gaps. Ava crouched and checked the line in 3 places, running her finger just above the salt without touching it. She nodded. "That'll hold." "For how long?" I asked. "Long enough." She stood and capped the container. "Now we hang the striker." Cheryl looked up. "Go, both of you. I'll stay here." I didn't argue. I grabbed the striker and followed Ava out of the shed. Sage stayed inside. The door swung shut behind us. The fog was closer, a lot closer, maybe 200 yards out now, sitting on the water in a solid wall. It wasn't moving with the wind. It wasn't moving at all, just sitting there, waiting. Ava walked fast up the path toward the church. I kept pace. My boots slipped once on wet ground, but I caught myself. She didn't look back. When we reached the church, she pushed the door open and went straight to the bell chain hanging along the right wall. It was still swaying, still clinking. Ronald was gone. Ava pulled a small folding knife from her pocket and cut a short length of cord from a coil hanging on a peg near the door. She tied one end to the top of the striker, looped the other end through a link in the bell chain about chest height, and pulled it tight. The striker hung free now. It swung slightly when she let go. "One ring," she said. She stepped back and looked at me. "Clean, no hesitation. You stop the hum before it roots or it spreads into the fog, and the fog brings it back louder." "Got it. Do you?" I looked at her. "One clean ring. Stop the hum." She nodded but didn't look convinced. She stepped aside and gestured toward the chain. I wrapped my hand around the cold metal links and pulled. The bell rang, one clear note that cut through the air and rolled down the hill toward the water. At the exact same moment, the tarp over the body lifted, not like wind got under it, like something pushed from underneath. Slow and deliberate. The blue plastic rose in the center and held there for a beat, then dropped back down. I let go of the chain. My hand was still ringing from the vibration. Then I heard it. Humming. Low and steady, coming from the direction of the shed. Not a voice. Not exactly. It was coming through teeth. Through something clenched. The sound crawled up my spine and settled at the base of my skull. Ava's face went pale. It's rooted. What? The hum. It's already rooted. One ring was supposed to erase it. She looked at me, then at the bell. You were too slow. I rang it the second you said, "Doesn't matter now." She turned and looked down the hill. The fog was moving. Fast. It rushed between the houses with no sound at all, sliding like smoke through the narrow lanes and over the low stone walls. It moved wrong. Too fast. Too quiet. I grabbed the chain again. I'll ring it again. Wait. I didn't wait. I pulled. The bell rang. I pulled again. Another ring. Then again. I kept going, yanking the chain in a rhythm I didn't think about, just trying to drown out the hum. 4 rings. 5. 6. The humming stopped. I let go of the chain and stepped back, breathing hard. The striker swung slowly on its cord. Ava was staring at me. That wasn't the way. Then I heard it. A deeper sound. Lower. Offshore. The foghorn. The light station foghorn. The one I was hired to fix. The one I hadn't touched yet because I'd been focused on the junction box and the wiring and staying on schedule for the Friday ferry. It blasted once, long and low. The sound rolled across the island and rattled the church windows. Then again, and again. I looked at Ava. I didn't turn that on. I know. The bell chain jerked in my hands, hard, like something grabbed the other end and pulled. I tightened my grip, but it yanked again, harder this time, and the links slid through my palms and burned. I let go. The chain swung wild, clattering against the wall. Ava grabbed my arm. Look! I followed her gaze down the hill toward the rocks below the churchyard. 4 shapes were climbing up from the water. Fast. Low to the ground. Moving through the fog on all 4s, but wrong. Their limbs bent at angles that didn't match human joints. They moved smooth and quick, pulling themselves over the rocks without sound. I couldn't see their faces, just the shapes, dark and wet and wrong. Ava pulled me back toward the church door. Inside, now. I didn't move. I was watching the shapes. They were halfway up the rocks now. One of them stopped and turned its head toward the church, toward us. The foghorn blasted again. Noah! Ava's voice was tight. Now! I stepped back. My boot hit the threshold. The shapes kept climbing. Sage bolted, just turned and ran toward the rocks, limping on his bad leg, but moving fast anyway. I shouted something. Don't remember what. Ava grabbed for his jacket and missed. One of the shapes came up over the stone wall faster than anything that size should move. Low to the ground. Wet. I saw the outline. Shoulders, arms, head, but the joints bent wrong and the limbs stretched too long when it reached. It hit Sage from the side. I heard the impact, heard him go down hard on the rocks. Then I heard the tearing. Not a rip, not a slice. A wet, deliberate separation of meat and skin peeling back from bone in one clean pull. Sage screamed. The shape had his leg. Its hands, or whatever they were, dug into his calf and opened it lengthwise from knee to ankle. I saw white bone through the gap, saw muscles split apart, saw blood, dark and fast, pooling on the rock underneath him. The shape didn't bite, didn't claw, just tore. Sage kept screaming. I moved without deciding to, grabbed his arm, his jacket, whatever I could reach. Pulled him back toward the shed with both hands while his boot dragged and his leg left a smear across the stone. He was heavy, heavier than he should have been. The shape didn't let go right away. I felt resistance, felt it pull back. Then it released and slid backward into the fog without a sound. Ava was already at the shed door, crouched low, pouring salt in a wide arc from a second bag I hadn't seen her carrying. She moved fast, steady hands. The salt line she'd made earlier was too narrow, so she pulled it wider, creating a new border 2 feet out from the first. The white grains scattered across wet wood and stuck. I dragged Sage inside and he collapsed against the wall, breathing in short, broken gasps. His leg was still open, still bleeding. I didn't look at it long. Ava ducked inside behind me. I grabbed the metal bar leaning against the workbench, rusty rebar, maybe 3 feet long, and shoved it through the door handles, jamming it horizontal. The door shook once, tested, then stopped. I stepped back. Through the gap between the door and frame, maybe half an inch wide, I saw them. Green eyes, 4 sets, maybe 5, blinking slow and steady in the fog, patient, like they had all the time they needed and knew it. I pressed my back against the wall and tried to breathe quiet. Footsteps outside. Fast ones. Human. Ronald's voice came through the door, low and controlled. "Let me in." I pulled the bar out and cracked the door. Ronald slipped through sideways and I jammed the bar back in place before anything else could follow. Ronald looked at Sage, at the leg, at the blood spreading across the floorboards. He didn't react, just turned to me. "More ringing only widens the doors," he said. I stared at him. "What?" "The gill cuts." He gestured toward the tarp where the floater lay inside the salt circle. "They're doors. The sound opens them. You rang 6 times. You made it worse." My hands were still shaking. Ava told you to ring once." Ronald's voice stayed level, calm. "The striker needs blood, and the blood has to carry a deliberately offered memory. That's the method. That's what anchors it." I looked down at my hands, at the scraped knuckles I'd had since the first day from catching myself on the rocks near the light station. And I understood. The ugly message clicked into place all at once. The island had been testing me, testing what kind of man got off the ferry, what he'd do when things went wrong, whether he'd follow instructions or panic. I panicked. I rang 6 times because I didn't trust the method, didn't trust Ava, didn't trust any of it. And my panic answered. Now Sage was on the floor with his leg torn open and shapes outside the door, and Ronald looking at me like he already knew I'd fail before I did. I opened my mouth but didn't say anything. What was there to say? Above us, something scraped. I looked up. The floater was moving under the tarp, not thrashing, just scraping its fingers, or hands or whatever, against the underside of the boards, slow and rhythmic. The sound was dry, deliberate. Splinters fell through the cracks and landed on Sage's face. He flinched, but didn't brush them off. His eyes were open, staring at nothing. "I can feel it," Sage said. His voice was quiet, flat. "Feel what?" I asked. "The sea." He swallowed. His throat clicked. "Pulling, at the cut, like it's connected, like the wound goes out past my leg, past the dock, out into the water." I didn't know what to say to that. Ava moved to the corner and crouched near a wooden crate, pulling it open. She dug through rope and tools and produced a flare gun, old orange plastic, single shot. She pushed it toward me without standing. "Burn them," she said. Ronald stepped between us. "No." Ava's jaw tightened. "It's all we've got. Fire feeds the foghorn." Ronald's tone didn't change, still calm, still steady. "The horn is already calling more in. You light a flare, you'll draw every one of them up onto the rocks." Ava didn't argue, just set the flare gun down and stepped back. Ronald turned to me. Unwrap the striker. I'd set it on the workbench when I dragged Sage inside. The gray cloth was still wound around it. I picked it up and pulled the fabric away. The striker was brass, dull, tarnished green in places, but along the flat surface, stuck in the crevices, were dark flakes, small pieces of something papery and burned. "What is this?" I asked. "Hymn pages," Ronald said. "From old funerals, burned and pressed into the metal. They anchor memories. Let the bell carry them instead of just sound." I turned the striker over in my hands. The flakes clung to the brass in uneven patches, brittle and thin. "You need to offer something," Ronald continued. "A memory. One that matters. One that hurt. You coat the striker in your blood and you hold that memory while you ring. The bell takes it, carries it out. That's what stops them." I looked at Sage, at the leg, at the blood still spreading. Then I looked at Ronald. "How do you know this works?" "Because I've done it." He didn't blink. Twice. I believed him. I pulled Sage's knife from the sheath on his belt. He didn't stop me, didn't even look. I pressed the blade into my palm and dragged it across. Not deep, just enough to bleed. It stung, sharp and clean. I wiped the blood across the striker, smearing it into the flakes and the tarnish, coating the brass until my hand went slick. Then I made myself remember. The call, the woman in the bathroom, the sound of the door breaking, her voice begging, the man's footsteps, and me. Silent, frozen, listening. I held it, didn't push it away, didn't let myself think about anything else. I wrapped my bloody hand around the bell chain and pulled. The bell rang once, clear, long, rolling down the hill. I held the memory steady, kept it sharp, let it sit in my chest where it always sat and didn't try to bury it. The sound finished clean. I let go of the chain. The fog stopped. I mean, it literally stopped moving, like it hit a wall. The shapes outside the door, I couldn't see them anymore through the crack, but I heard them shift, heard wet feet on stone, backing away. Then I heard dragging. I shoved my face against the gap and looked out. The shapes were retreating, moving back toward the rocks, fast and low. And they had Sage. I don't know when they grabbed him. I turned and he wasn't against the wall anymore. The door was still barred. The salt line was still unbroken. But there was a gap. Not in the door, in the floorboards near the back wall. A space maybe 6 inches wide where the planks didn't meet right. I hadn't noticed it before. They'd pulled him through. I ran to the back wall and dropped to my knees, shoving my arm through the gap, reaching. I caught his jacket, his leg, his boot, slick with blood. He slid through my grip. I pulled harder, dug my fingers in, tried to brace against the wall, but the pull toward the sea was stronger, and if I didn't let go, I was going through with him. I let go. Sage didn't come back. By morning, the fog was gone. The foghorn was silent. I stood on the dock and looked at the water. Flat, gray, normal. Sage's blood was still there. Dark stains on the wood where we'd dragged him. I'd tried scrubbing them with seawater and a brush Cheryl handed me without a word, but the stains wouldn't come up, just spread thinner, pinker. His trapline was coiled on the dock next to the bait shed, neat, even, like someone finished the job with practiced hands. I didn't touch it. Cheryl was at the church scrubbing the steps with a wire brush and a bucket. I walked past her on my way back to the inn. She didn't look up. I said her name. She kept scrubbing. I stopped walking. "Cheryl!" She paused, didn't turn around. "Go back to your room. You need to stay out of the way." Her voice was flat, hard. "You've done enough." I didn't argue. She treated my presence like part of the damage, and maybe she was right. Ronald found me on the porch an hour later. He had the striker in his hand, wrapped in the gray cloth again. "I'm keeping this," he said. I nodded. He sat on the bench next to me. Didn't say anything for a minute. Then, "The island will expect you to ring when the horizon dims again." I looked at him. "What?" "You fed the tool." He gestured with the wrapped striker. "Your blood. Your memory. It knows you now. When it happens again, you'll be the one they call." "I'm leaving," I said. "Ferry's Friday. I'm gone." Ronald's expression didn't change. "You can try." I stood and went inside. I packed my duffel in under 5 minutes. Clothes, charger, gloves, deodorant, everything I came with. I grabbed my toolbox and walked downhill toward the dock. The posted schedule was nailed to a board near the ramp. I read it twice. Next ferry, 3 days away. Weather delay, limited November service. The boat that brought me was already gone. I stood there with my duffel in one hand and my toolbox in the other and stared at the empty water. Then I turned around and went back up the hill. The wiring at the light station wasn't finished. Junction box still needed the NEMA 4X replacement. Conduit clamps. Weather-rated connectors. That was the contract I signed. But the island's real contract, the one with blood and bells and fog that listens, that one had already been assigned. I still had the key to room 3 in my pocket. I kept walking.